Daniel Walsh is a millionaire CEO in Boston, commanding a sleek music streaming empire. But every night, silence echoes in his loft, haunted by the son he lost track of over a decade ago. He thought the child was gone forever, until a single guitar note at a foster care fundraiser changes everything. There, an 11-year-old boy named Oliver strums a tune Daniel once wrote as a teen. The boy's hazel eyes, his curly hair, even the worn guitar sticker, all tug at something buried deep in Daniel's past. Then, Oliver says 5 words that shatter his world. "I've never known my parents." Driven by instinct, Daniel investigates, and what he finds breaks his heart. Oliver is his son. The mother, afraid of ruining his career, had given him up, then died. Now, Oliver is alone, rejected, moved from home to home while Daniel built his fortune. Can a CEO who's built walls around his heart become a father to a boy who's learned never to trust? This is a story of broken silence, quiet guitar chords, and a bond born not in blood, but in music, healing, and second chances. Will Oliver open his heart? Can Daniel rebuild what was stolen by time? A single song may hold the answer. Subscribe to see this heartfelt story unfold. Daniel Walsh had everything: a penthouse view of Boston Harbor, a billion-dollar music empire, and a face on the cover of Forbes. But as the city buzzed below his sleek downtown loft, silence hung thick inside. It was the kind of silence that clung to glass walls, echoed off marble floors, and whispered one name in his dreams: Oliver. 13 years ago, after a brief relationship that ended without warning, Daniel received a letter from the woman he once loved. "Don't look for me, I've handled it." The words were vague, final. She disappeared, and with her, the child she hinted might be his. A child Daniel never saw, never held. People assumed Daniel had no family, and he let them. But on a rainy Thursday evening, everything changed. He'd been invited to a foster care fundraiser at a local art school. Daniel rarely attended these events, but a business partner convinced him it would look good. He stood near the back, half listening to speeches, sipping flat champagne, until music cut through the hum of polite chatter. A boy, barely 11, sat alone on stage, tuning a beat-up guitar. Then he began to play. The melody was raw, soulful, and eerily familiar. Daniel froze. That was his song. One he wrote at 17. He never released it. It lived only in an old composition book, long buried in his past. Daniel pushed forward through the crowd. Closer now, he could see the boy's face, hazel eyes, curly brown hair, a nervous tremble in his fingers as he strummed. But what struck Daniel most was the sticker on the boy's guitar, a torn red phoenix. He'd designed that himself in college. Only a handful existed. As the final note rang out, Daniel approached the stage. The boy looked up, startled. "That was beautiful," Daniel said softly. "Where did you learn that song?" The boy shrugged, eyes guarded. I just heard it in a dream, I think. Or maybe it was in one of the old recordings at my last home. I don't know. I've moved a lot." Daniel knelt beside him. "What's your name?" "Oliver," the boy replied. "I don't know my last name. They just call me Oliver at the center." Daniel's breath caught. "Do you know anything about your parents?" Oliver shook his head. "Not really. They say I was dropped off as a baby. Been in homes ever since." The world shifted. Daniel stared at the boy's face, so much like his own, and suddenly every moment he'd buried came crashing back. The letter, the silence, the missing years. "Do you like music?" Daniel asked. Oliver's expression softened, just a little. "It's the only thing that feels like mine." They sat together for almost an hour, talking softly. Daniel asked questions gently, not wanting to overwhelm. Oliver shared stories of bouncing between group homes, of the guitar he found in a donation bin, of learning by watching YouTube tutorials in the library. Daniel's heart broke with each word. That night, he didn't go back to his penthouse. Instead, he called a hotel manager he trusted. Within the hour, Oliver was checked into a warm suite with a full meal and a safe bed. Daniel didn't leave until Oliver was asleep, the guitar resting beside him. On the way out, Daniel saw the guitar again. His eyes locked on the Phoenix sticker, worn, faded, but unmistakable. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an old keychain. The same design. A phoenix in flight, a symbol of second chances. He held it tight. Something was happening. Something he never expected. And it had just begun. Morning light spilled across the hotel room window, casting soft shadows over the worn guitar case resting near the bed. Oliver stirred beneath the thick covers, unfamiliar with such warmth. At the small table nearby sat Daniel, still in yesterday's suit, eyes red from a sleepless night. He hadn't left. He watched Oliver sleep the way a man studies a photograph he thought was lost, afraid it might vanish again. When the boy finally sat up, blinking into the light, Daniel stood and approached slowly. "Hey," he said gently, "you hungry?" Oliver nodded, rubbing his eyes. Am I in trouble?" Daniel shook his head. "No, not at all. You played something last night that hit me harder than anything I've heard in years." The boy shrugged, glancing at his guitar. "I don't really know how to read music. I just feel it." Daniel smiled, kneeling beside him. "That song you played, I wrote it, a long time ago, before you were even born." Oliver's head tilted. "You did?" "I did," Daniel said, voice tight. "And the sticker on your guitar, I made that design in college. Only 5 of them exist." Oliver blinked. "This one was already on it when I found it, at the shelter." Daniel sat back, processing. The universe wasn't whispering, it was shouting. Later that morning, after breakfast, pancakes and hot cocoa that Oliver devoured like he hadn't eaten in days, Daniel drove to his office but didn't go inside. Instead, he called a man he hadn't spoken to in years. "Eli, it's Daniel Walsh. I need you to look into something. Quietly." "Missing persons again?" the investigator asked. "No," Daniel replied. "A child. His name's Oliver, 11 years old. I need everything. His file, his foster history, his birth records. And Eli? Yeah? I think he's mine." There was a pause on the line. "Understood. I'll call you in 24 hours. Daniel hung up and turned the key in his ignition, but he didn't drive off. He stared at the dashboard, heart racing. That afternoon, he picked up Oliver from the hotel and took him to a quiet cafe near Beacon Hill. They sat in a booth by the window. Daniel had brought a small bundle wrapped in a cloth napkin. He placed it on the table between them. Oliver peeked inside. Old music books, frayed at the edges, filled with penciled notes and handwritten lyrics. "You can have these," Daniel said. "I wrote them years ago. Maybe you'll recognize some of the melodies." Oliver opened the top one, eyes scanning the pages like he was deciphering a secret map. He paused. "This part right here. I played that. Last night." Daniel's throat tightened. "I know." The boy hesitated. "Why are you being nice to me?" Daniel leaned forward. "Because I think I should have been in your life a long time ago, and I didn't know." Oliver's fingers touched the pages gently, like they might break. "People say that sometimes. Then they leave." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm not leaving." A silence passed between them. Outside, a breeze stirred the maple leaves. Inside, Oliver's hand rested on a page marked with a sketch, a phoenix in flight, drawn next to a song titled "If I Could Find You." He looked up. "You drew this?" Daniel nodded. "It was the last song I wrote before everything changed." That night, Daniel moved Oliver to a safer, more private hotel and had a doctor do a wellness check. Malnourished, a few old bruises, nothing life-threatening but enough to spark fury in Daniel's chest. He called his attorney at midnight. "Start the paperwork," he said. Emergency custody. Private guardian ad litem. I want full legal rights, and do not leak this to anyone. Not yet. The lawyer sighed. This could get messy. The state doesn't move fast. I don't care, Daniel said. I'm not letting him go back into that system. As he hung up, he stared at his phone screen. On it was a photo he took earlier that day. Oliver, asleep in the car, cradling the old music book like a lifeline. And beside him, that guitar with the phoenix. Daniel whispered to no one. This time, I won't miss the sign. The next morning, Daniel stood in the corner of a small clinic room, arms crossed, trying to stay composed. Oliver sat on the exam table, swinging his legs, silent but alert. The pediatrician glanced up from her clipboard. He's a little underweight, she said, but overall healthy. No signs of long-term trauma, thank God. Daniel nodded, eyes on the boy. Thank you. Can I have a few minutes? The doctor gave a soft smile and left, closing the door behind her. Daniel approached slowly. Hey, how you holding up? Oliver shrugged. It's weird, all of this. Nice, but weird. Daniel sat beside him. I get that. I know this is a lot. I'm just trying to make sure you're okay. Oliver looked down at his fingers. Nobody's ever taken me to the doctor. Not unless I was bleeding. That hit like a punch. Daniel reached into his coat pocket and pulled something out. A faded photo, edges curled, colors dull. He handed it to Oliver. The boy squinted. What's this? It's a picture of your mother, Daniel said quietly. Taken the day I met her. Her name was Emily. We were both in college. Oliver stared at the picture, expression unreadable. She's pretty. She was, Daniel said, and kind. Brilliant. She played piano like it was a second language. He paused. I think she gave you that gift, music. Oliver's throat bobbed. Did she want me? Daniel's voice cracked. I didn't know she was pregnant. I never got the chance to ask, but I know she would have wanted you safe. The boy looked up, eyes filled with something Daniel hadn't seen before. Hope, maybe, or the ache of understanding. Then Oliver asked, Do you think she kept me a secret because of you? Daniel nodded slowly. Maybe. I was chasing everything back then. Money, fame, control. I wouldn't have handled it well. She might have thought she was protecting you. There was a long pause. But she should have told me, he whispered. I would have figured it out. Oliver looked away. I don't know what to feel. I don't even know you. Daniel didn't flinch. That's okay. We can take it slow. We can build this one step at a time. Oliver fiddled with the corner of the photo, then slipped it into his pocket. I had a drawing of my mom once, but it got wet in a storm. I kept it in my shoe. Daniel's eyes stung. You don't have to hide things anymore. As they stepped out of the clinic, the sky was overcast. Across the street, a mural covered a brick wall. Bright colors, painted music notes wrapped around a phoenix rising through flame. Oliver stopped walking. That looks like the one on my guitar, he said. Daniel followed his gaze and smiled. That symbol meant rebirth to me. New beginnings. The boy tilted his head. You drew that? I did, Daniel said softly, back when I was trying to find myself. Oliver stared at the mural a moment longer. Maybe we're both still trying. That night, back at the hotel, Daniel stood at the window while Oliver sat on the carpet, cross-legged, sketching. Crayons scattered beside him, tongue poking from the corner of his mouth. Daniel turned. What are you drawing? Oliver held it up. A boy and a man stood side by side. One held a guitar, the other a songbook. Above them, a red phoenix spread its wings. Daniel knelt beside him. Is that us? Oliver nodded. Maybe. Daniel's voice caught. Can I keep it? Only if you don't leave, Oliver said quickly. Then, quieter, people always leave. Daniel placed a hand gently over the drawing. I'm not going anywhere. At that moment, his phone buzzed. A message from Eli lit the screen. Found something. We need to talk. In person. Daniel looked back at Oliver, now humming softly as he shaded in the wings. The past was calling. But for the first time, Daniel wasn't running from it. He was walking straight into it. For Oliver. The sky outside was gray, and a soft drizzle glazed the windows of Daniel's black SUV as it pulled into the private parking garage beneath his office tower. He hadn't told Oliver where they were going, just that he needed to meet someone. Inside a quiet conference room on the 23rd floor, Eli waited, hands folded, a manila folder resting beside a steaming cup of black coffee. "You came alone?" Eli asked, glancing behind Daniel. "He's downstairs with my assistant," Daniel replied. "He doesn't need to hear this yet." Eli slid the folder across the table. "I pulled everything. Birth records, court documents, even old apartment leases. His mother's name was Emily Grayson." Daniel exhaled slowly, already bracing. She gave birth in a clinic just outside Providence. Never listed a father. A year later, she relinquished custody. No fight, no contest. Said she had no family, no support, and was moving out of state. Then she vanished. Daniel opened the file, and there it was, Oliver's birth certificate. The father's name box was blank. "She never told me," Daniel whispered. "Not a word." Eli continued. "She resurfaced briefly 5 years ago, worked part-time at a music store, died in a car accident 18 months later. No emergency contact. Oliver was placed into the system." Daniel stared at the paperwork. How does a kid go from a music store to 6 different foster homes in 3 years? "Budget cuts, overcrowding, bad luck," Eli said grimly. One report even mentioned neglect at a placement, but he never caused trouble, just kept his head down. Daniel looked up. "They said he never caused trouble?" Eli nodded. "But he never stayed long either." Daniel closed the folder and stood. "I want a DNA test expedited." "Already sent the kit to the lab this morning," Eli said. "But, Daniel, you might not like what you learn next." Daniel paused, hand on the doorframe. "What else?" Eli hesitated. One of the families that returned Oliver said he kept sketching the same face, a man in a suit, said it was his dad. Daniel's heart thudded. "He'd sit in the corner with crayons," Eli added, drawing that man over and over again. Downstairs, Daniel stepped out of the elevator to find Oliver sitting on the bench outside the office, head bent over a sketch pad. He was drawing again. Daniel sat beside him. "What are you working on?" Oliver hesitated, then turned the pad. A man stood tall in front of a city skyline, holding a guitar case in one hand and a child's hand in the other. The boy wore a hoodie, the man a blazer. Above them, in red crayon, was one word: home. Daniel's voice cracked. "You've drawn that before?" Oliver nodded. "Since I was little. I don't know why. I just kept drawing him." Daniel swallowed hard, then pulled something from his jacket pocket, a folded copy of Emily's old photo, now paired with the birth certificate. He handed it to Oliver. "This was your mom, and this proves I'm your father." Oliver stared down, quiet. His lips parted slightly, then closed again. "She never told me I had a dad," he whispered. "She used to sing sometimes, though. Little tunes. I remembered the notes. That's how I found your song." Daniel felt tears rising. "She was protecting you. I don't blame her, but I blame myself for not looking harder." Oliver looked up. "Are you going to leave?" Daniel knelt beside the boy. "Never again." For the first time, Oliver leaned into him. Not fully, not with trust, but just enough. Enough for Daniel to feel the weight of his son's small body press against him, hesitant but real. Later that night, in the quiet of the hotel room, Oliver fell asleep with his sketchbook on his chest. The drawing of the man and boy, still open. Daniel stood at the window, phone in hand. A new text buzzed in. "DNA confirmed. 99.98% match. He's yours." Daniel didn't smile. He didn't cry. He simply whispered, "Welcome home, Oliver." And for the first time in years, he meant it. Daniel paced the hotel hallway just outside the suite door, his phone pressed tight to his ear. His voice was calm, but his hand trembled. "Yes, I want the best family law attorney you've got," he said. "No press, no leaks. We go for emergency guardianship first, then full custody." He ended the call and took a long breath before walking back inside. Oliver sat cross-legged on the couch, sketchbook in lap, fingers smudged with pencil. His guitar leaned against the armrest beside him, always within reach. "Was that about me?" Oliver asked, not looking up. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I'm making sure no one can take you away." The boy didn't reply. He just kept shading the edge of a phoenix wing. Daniel crossed the room and crouched down. "Do you want to stay with me, Oliver?" Oliver hesitated, then whispered, "I want to stop wondering where I'll be next week." That was enough. That afternoon, Daniel brought Oliver to his loft for the first time. The elevator doors opened into a sprawling space of glass and stone. Modern, but not cold. A wall of windows overlooked the Charles River. On the far side, a music corner waited. Keyboards, amps, shelves of vinyl. But something was missing. Daniel handed Oliver a key. "This is your home now, too. You can come and go freely." Oliver clutched it tight. "Even if I mess up?" Daniel looked him in the eye. "Especially then." Later that evening, Daniel brought in a private physician. Oliver sat on the kitchen stool while the doctor checked his vitals, asked questions, made notes. "He's doing okay," the doctor told Daniel quietly. "But there's some mild malnutrition and signs of chronic stress. No major injuries. He's just worn out." Daniel nodded. "Do whatever he needs." When the doctor left, Daniel handed Oliver a gift. Thin, carefully wrapped. Oliver peeled the paper back to reveal a stack of music books. Not flashy, not expensive. Worn, handwritten volumes filled with chords and lyrics from Daniel's early years. "Some of these," Daniel said, "were never published, but they meant a lot to me. I thought you might want to see how a song grows." Oliver flipped through the pages slowly, pausing at one labeled, "In the Quiet." "I used to hum this," he whispered, "in one of the homes. I didn't know where it came from." "It came from me," Daniel said. "Maybe. It found you anyway." That night, Oliver didn't ask to watch TV. He didn't explore the giant living room or open kitchen. He sat by the window with his guitar and the books, playing soft, searching notes. Daniel stood behind him, hands in his pockets, just listening. Suddenly, Oliver looked up. "Can you play with me?" Daniel blinked. "It's been a while." Oliver scooted over on the bench. "I'll teach you." Daniel sat beside him and reached for the second guitar leaning against the wall. He hadn't touched it in years. Oliver guided his fingers. "That string buzzes too much. Press softer." Daniel laughed. "You sound like a teacher." Oliver grinned. "Mom used to say I was bossy when I played." Daniel's smile faded, but his voice stayed steady. Then she was probably right. They played together, slow and offbeat, until the rhythm came. A quiet harmony began to build. And for the first time, the room didn't feel hollow. It felt like something was finally taking shape. Later, as Oliver drifted off on the couch, sketchbook still in his lap, Daniel gently covered him with a blanket. Inside the sketchbook was a new drawing. A boy holding a guitar, a man holding a key. Above them, written in bold, shaky letters, "Still here." Daniel traced the outline of the page with one hand, the other resting over his heart. No more waiting, no more wondering. This was the start. It was just after sunrise when Daniel returned to the kitchen, coffee in hand, only to find Oliver already awake, sitting barefoot on the windowsill with his sketchbook. "You didn't sleep much," Daniel said softly. Oliver didn't look up. "I had a dream about her." Daniel sat at the counter silent. "She was sitting at a piano. I was behind her. She kept playing this one part over and over, like she was stuck." Daniel nodded. "Maybe it was something she never finished." "I think it was meant for you," Oliver said, flipping to a blank page. "But she never sent it." Later that morning, Daniel met with Eli again, this time at a quiet diner off a Huntington Ave, away from the cameras, away from the boardroom. Eli slid a USB drive across the table. Her name was Emily Grayson, born in Vermont. Her mother died when she was 10. No father on record. She got into Berkeley on a music scholarship. Daniel swallowed hard. She was brilliant. She moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Brighton a few months after your breakup, Eli continued. Started working 2 jobs, gigging at small clubs, tutoring piano. Then the baby came. She never listed your name. Daniel stared at the coffee in front of him. She could have called, he whispered. Eli leaned in. She wrote a letter. I found it in her old locker at the studio she taught at. Daniel's breath caught. To me? No, to Oliver. Back at the loft, Daniel handed the sealed envelope to Oliver. The boy hesitated. Where'd you get this? From someone who knew your mom. She left it behind. Oliver took it slowly, running his thumb across the edge. Can I read it alone? Daniel nodded. Of course. The boy disappeared into his room, closing the door with a soft click. For the next hour, Daniel waited. He cleaned the kitchen, watered a plant he never noticed before, paced the hallway twice. Finally, the door opened. Oliver stepped out, face pale, letter clutched to his chest. She was scared, he said, voice cracking. She thought if she told you, you'd choose your career. Daniel's heart dropped. She was right. Back then, I would have. She said she watched your interviews from time to time, Oliver continued. Said you looked lonely. Daniel sat on the edge of the couch, head in his hands. She told me, Oliver added, to forgive you if we ever met. Daniel looked up slowly. Do you? Oliver wiped his cheek. I don't know, but I don't want to be mad forever. That night, Daniel took Oliver to a rooftop music lounge, quiet, cozy, filled with warm lights and jazz tones drifting through the air. They sat by the edge looking out over the city. She played here once, Daniel said, nodding toward the small stage. Before she left town, I remember the way she held the mic like it was her only anchor. Oliver clutched the letter in his pocket. Did you love her? I did, Daniel answered, but I loved myself more. Oliver didn't reply right away. Instead, he pulled a folded paper from his sketchbook. It was a new drawing, a piano, and beside it a small boy holding a guitar. Between them, an open letter. Daniel touched the corner of the page. That's beautiful. I think she wanted us to finish what she started, Oliver said. Daniel smiled through the ache in his chest. Then let's finish it. As they walked back home, the city lights danced across the sidewalk. Oliver didn't let go of the drawing, and Daniel didn't let go of hope. Not this time. It was quiet that morning, too quiet for a house that had finally found its missing piece. Daniel stood in the kitchen, staring into his coffee as if it held answers. He'd barely slept. The DNA results were undeniable. Oliver was his son, his flesh, his blood. He should have felt whole. Instead, he felt broken in a way success had never prepared him for. He walked down the hall and paused outside Oliver's room. The door was cracked open. Inside, the boy sat on the edge of the bed, cradling his guitar like it was armor. The letter from his mother lay beside him, creased, read, and reread. You okay? Daniel asked gently, stepping inside. Oliver nodded, just thinking. Daniel sat beside him. About her? Oliver shook his head. About the other places, the ones I stayed in. There were good ones, and some not so good. Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. You should have never been in any of them. Oliver looked down. One house had this rule. You couldn't play music unless it was Sunday, and even then, only hymns. Daniel blinked. But you still played? Oliver smiled faintly. I'd play with no strings, just air. Pretend it made sound. Daniel swallowed hard. You kept going. Because I thought maybe you'd hear me, Oliver whispered. That afternoon, Daniel's legal team called. The court date was set. Full custody proceedings would begin in 2 weeks. But the social worker assigned to Oliver's case requested an in-home visit, standard procedure. She'd want to see the environment, talk to Oliver, assess the relationship. Daniel welcomed it, until he learned who the caseworker was. "Her name's Karen Shepard," the lawyer said. "She's by the book, had a few high-profile removals. If she sees instability, she'll recommend a return to state custody." Daniel's stomach dropped. "We've only had a few days. She'll look for signs of attachment, comfort, routine," the lawyer added. "She'll ask Oliver questions, personal ones." Daniel hung up and turned to Oliver, who was lying on the studio floor, plucking chords from memory. "Hey," Daniel said, kneeling beside him. "We've got a visitor tomorrow. Someone from the court." Oliver stiffened. "Are they going to take me back?" "No," Daniel said firmly, "but they'll ask questions. Just be honest, okay?" Oliver looked at him. "What if I say the wrong thing?" "You won't," Daniel said. "There's no wrong answer to the truth." That evening, Daniel dug through an old box from his college days, ripped notebooks, demo CDs, scribbled lyrics. Near the bottom was a crumpled page he hadn't seen in years. A lullaby. One Emily used to hum while washing dishes. He recognized the tune instantly. He brought it to Oliver. "I wrote this with your mom. We never recorded it." Oliver studied the paper, eyes wide. "Can we finish it?" Daniel nodded, sitting at the piano. Oliver sat beside him with his guitar. Together, they filled the silence with something more powerful than words. Music. The next day, Karen Shepard arrived. Tall, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. She didn't smile much. Took notes in long, silent streaks. Observed everything. Oliver answered every question. "How often do you eat meals here?" "Every night." "Do you feel safe?" "Yes." "Do you trust Daniel?" Oliver hesitated, then met her eyes. "He's the only person who ever waited for me to finish a song." Karen scribbled something down and glanced at Daniel. "That's not a clinical answer, but it's a good one." After she left, Oliver exhaled deeply. "I think I passed." Daniel ruffled his hair. "You weren't the one being tested, kid." That night, Oliver taped a drawing to the fridge. 2 guitars crossed at the neck. One small, one full-sized. Above them, in block letters, "We're in tune now." And for Daniel, it was the first time in years the silence felt like music. The morning sun poured through the loft windows, casting golden rays over Oliver's scattered music sheets. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching the boy adjust his guitar strap with quiet focus. There was something different in his posture lately, more grounded, but also guarded. "Ready for school?" Daniel asked. Oliver nodded, tucking his sketchbook into his backpack. "I guess." "New place, new faces," Daniel said gently. "You sure you're okay?" Oliver looked up. "What if I don't fit in?" "You will," Daniel replied, walking over. "You don't have to be anyone but yourself." At the front door, Oliver hesitated. "What if someone asks who you are?" Daniel smiled. "You tell them whatever feels right." That answer mattered. Later, at the performing arts school, Oliver's nerves showed. He clutched the strap of his backpack like a lifeline. Daniel waited by the reception desk as staff escorted Oliver to his first class. Just before he disappeared down the hallway, Oliver turned and gave Daniel a small wave. Daniel waved back, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Back at the office, Daniel tried to focus. Emails, meetings, product pitch decks, but none of it stuck. His thoughts drifted back to the way Oliver's shoulders tensed when the school doors opened, how the boy's fingers shook slightly when he signed his name on the clipboard. That night, over dinner, Daniel asked, "How was school?" Oliver shrugged. "They put me in the advanced music class. Some of the kids were nice." "Just nice?" Daniel asked. Oliver hesitated. "One boy asked where I lived before this. I told him a bunch of different places." Daniel frowned. "You don't have to hide anything." "I don't want them to look at me like I'm broken," Oliver said softly, "like I'm a project." Daniel reached across the table. "You're not. You're a kid who's been through too much too soon, but you're not broken." Oliver looked down at his plate. "Sometimes I feel like I am." Daniel didn't push. Instead, he stood and walked to a side drawer, returning with a small wooden box. Inside was a key, plain brass, engraved with one word: Anchor. "I got this when I signed the lease on this place," Daniel said. "I never told anyone, but I kept it, because I needed to believe this space could become something more than just walls and glass." He handed it to Oliver. "Now it belongs to both of us." Oliver turned the key in his palm, the engraved word catching the light. "Does this mean I'm staying?" Daniel nodded. "It means you're already home." But late that night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He stepped onto the balcony. City lights blinking in the distance, his phone buzzing on the table beside him. It was a message from his lawyer. CPS reviewing past placements. One foster home filed a formal complaint, alleging Oliver had behavioral outbursts. Could complicate custody. Daniel stared at the screen. Back inside, Oliver was curled up on the couch, sound asleep under a fleece blanket, his sketchbook open beside him. Daniel sat next to him, careful not to wake him, and glanced at the newest page. A drawing of two boats, one small, one large, tethered by a line labeled Anchor. He closed the book gently, heart aching. Maybe Oliver did have outbursts once. Maybe he acted out in places that never let him belong. But here, he was steady. Here, he was safe. Daniel picked up the key Oliver left on the coffee table, placed it in the boy's open hand, and whispered, "No matter what comes next, this key stays yours." The studio glowed with warm light as Oliver walked in after school, his guitar case slung over his shoulder. Daniel was already inside, bent over a mixing console, lost in thought. Strings of Edison bulbs hung overhead, and the scent of cedar drifted from the wooden panels Oliver had helped stain last weekend. "Looks different in here," Oliver said, stepping inside. Daniel turned and smiled. "It's yours now, too. I wanted it to feel like you." On one wall hung a new frame, a blown-up copy of the sketch Oliver had drawn, the one with two boats and the word Anchor between them. Oliver's eyes widened. "You framed it?" "I didn't just frame it," Daniel said. "It's the studio's name now, Anchor Sound." Oliver blinked. "Seriously?" Daniel nodded. "Music should feel safe, like it belongs. Just like you." That weekend, Daniel and Oliver shopped for gear. Cords, pedals, a second mic stand. The loft had transformed into a sanctuary of sound, laughter, and slow healing. But the world outside hadn't forgotten. One evening, while tuning their guitars, Daniel's phone buzzed again. Media request from WBC Boston. They want an interview, father and son. Oliver peeked over. "More news people?" Daniel sighed. "Yeah, they want us to tell our story." Oliver strummed a soft chord. "But it's not done yet." Daniel smiled. "Exactly." The next day, Daniel surprised Oliver by taking him to meet with the admissions board of the Berkeley City Music Program. They sat in a cozy conference room filled with posters of jazz legends and student showcases. The director, a kind-eyed woman named Miss Cortez, listened intently as Oliver played a short melody. When he finished, she clapped softly. "That was beautiful, Oliver. Where'd you learn that progression?" Oliver looked up. "I think from my mom. She played it when I was really little." Miss Cortez nodded. "You've got talent, but more than that, you've got soul." Daniel watched from the corner, pride rising in his chest. That evening, they celebrated with pizza on the rooftop. Boston's skyline shimmered in the background as Oliver played chords under the open sky. Between bites, Oliver said, "Feels weird, you know?" "What does?" Daniel asked. "Being happy, like it could all go away." Daniel leaned back. "I used to feel that way, too. After I made it big, I kept waiting for it to collapse, but then I realized it wasn't the success I was scared of losing." "What was it?" Oliver asked. "The chance to belong to something real," Daniel said. "That's what this is." Oliver was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled something from his backpack, a black and white photo, weathered, folded in half. Emily stood in front of a street piano in Cambridge, hands mid-air over the keys, laughing. A toddler, barely walking, clung to her knee. "That's the only picture I have of her," Oliver said. "Someone gave it to me at a group home, said she left it behind." Daniel took the photo carefully, his breath catching. He recognized the piano. He remembered that day. "I was across the street," he murmured. "I saw her, but I didn't know." Oliver looked up. "You think she knew you were there?" Daniel's throat tightened. "Maybe. Maybe she wanted me to see." They sat in silence, two timelines converging under the stars. Then Oliver whispered, "Look what I made, Dad." He reached for his sketchbook and turned to a fresh page. This time, the drawing was of the studio. 2 chairs, 2 mics, 1 word painted above them: home. Daniel pulled him into a hug. They didn't need more notes. They had found the song. Rain tapped against the tall windows of the loft as Daniel finished a late-night call with his legal team. The custody hearing was officially 1 week away. Everything was moving forward, on paper. But inside these walls, things weren't moving at all. Oliver sat cross-legged on the floor of the music studio, headphones on, guitar silent in his lap. He hadn't spoken much since school let out. Daniel had noticed the shift, the slower steps, the distant eyes. That night over dinner, Daniel tried again. "You barely touched your food." Oliver shrugged. "I'm not hungry." "Is something wrong at school?" "No," Oliver muttered, then pushed his plate aside. "It's not school. It's this." Daniel leaned forward. "Talk to me." Oliver looked up, eyes shining. "This place? It's too clean, too quiet. The pillows match. Nobody yells. It feels like a stage set, not real life." Daniel's heart sank. "You think it's fake?" "I think it's temporary," Oliver whispered. "Every time I get used to a place, someone says I'm too much, or not enough. Then I'm gone." Daniel sat back, stunned. "I'm not trying to hurt you," Oliver added, "but part of me keeps waiting for the suitcase by the door." Daniel nodded slowly. "I used to feel the same way about people, that one day they'd realize I wasn't worth the stay." Oliver glanced over. "But you're famous." Daniel chuckled. "That doesn't mean I never got left." Silence passed between them. Then Oliver said quietly, "Maybe we're just 2 people trying to prove we can be kept." Later that night, Daniel opened the linen closet and pulled out a dusty, wrapped package. Inside was a framed photograph, his old band, long before his company ever took off. He'd kept it hidden for years. The next morning, he hung it above the piano. When Oliver came down for breakfast, he paused. "Who are they?" "My first band," Daniel said. "We never made it. We fought all the time. But those guys, they stayed when I was broke and loud and lost." Oliver stepped closer, eyes on the photo. "They don't look perfect." "They weren't," Daniel said, "but they were real." After school, Daniel surprised Oliver with a detour. They walked into a dim, cluttered music store on Tremont Street. The owner, a grizzled man in flannel, grinned when he saw Daniel. Well, the prodigal guitarist returns," he laughed. Oliver's eyes lit up. "You used to come here?" "All the time," Daniel said. "I bought my first amp here." They spent over an hour exploring the shop. Oliver wandered toward a wall of vintage picks behind glass. One caught his eye, a copper pick etched with a single word. "Stay." Daniel noticed. "Want to try it?" Oliver nodded. Back home, they plugged in. The first chord buzzed through the speakers, full and raw. Oliver smiled. For the first time in days, he played without hesitation. That night, after Daniel turned off the lights, he passed by Oliver's room and saw something new. Taped to the wall, next to the drawing of the boats, was the copper pick, pinned like a medal, and below it, in Oliver's handwriting, "Not waiting for goodbye." Daniel stepped away, chest heavy, but full. Somewhere between the old fears and the new chords, they were writing a truth stronger than silence. This wasn't a stage set. This was their song. A late autumn chill swept through the city, but inside the studio, warmth buzzed in the air. Daniel sat at the piano, fingers dancing over familiar chords while Oliver tuned his guitar beside him. The boy was calmer now, but quieter too, more focused, more present. "I've been working on something," Oliver said, not looking up. Daniel paused. "A new song?" Oliver nodded. "You know that riff you played last week? I built on it." Daniel watched as Oliver slid a page of handwritten notes across the bench. The top corner had a small sketch, two hands reaching for each other, separated by musical bars. Daniel smiled. "You drew this?" "Yeah," Oliver muttered. "It's called Bridge Between." They started slow. Daniel played the keys, Oliver added the melody. Then came the words. Raw, unsure at first, but building. The chorus landed like a heartbeat. "I was a note, lost in a chord, but your voice pulled me home." Daniel blinked hard. He hadn't expected lyrics like that. Oliver glanced sideways. "You okay?" "Yeah," Daniel whispered. "More than okay." Their jam sessions became a nightly ritual. Laughter mixed with long talks. Sometimes they stayed up past midnight, not even noticing the clock. Oliver started opening up about his time in care, how music was the only thing that stayed with him. One night, after a quiet dinner, Daniel asked, "Would you ever want to perform it? At the festival?" Oliver looked down. "With you?" "If you'll have me." The boy grinned. "Only if we both wear those ugly boots you bought." Daniel laughed. "Deal." But as things smoothed out at home, external pressure crept in. Daniel's assistant forwarded him a media request, an op-ed accusing Daniel of using Oliver for publicity. The headline stung, "From CEO to Savior," or "Just Another Performance." He sat with it for a long time before deleting the email. Later that night, Oliver wandered into the studio with a string of tangled guitar wire in one hand and frustration all over his face. "These won't stay tuned." Daniel stood and helped. "You know what the first guitar teacher told me?" Oliver shook his head. "If your strings sound messy, it's probably not the strings. It's your fingers clenching too hard." Oliver raised an eyebrow. "So, I'm the problem?" Daniel smiled. "Sometimes. But so is caring too much." They fixed the guitar in silence. Then Oliver looked up and said, "Do you think people think I'm a charity case?" Daniel froze. "I read a comment online," Oliver added. "Said I was just your latest project." Daniel knelt down. "You are not a project. You are my son. And if anyone can't see that, forget them." Oliver's voice was smaller now. "But what if I mess up? What if I can't be what people expect?" Daniel took a deep breath. "Then we keep writing the song. Together." That weekend, they recorded a rough demo of Bridge Between. Oliver held the mic with steady hands, eyes closed, voice unguarded. When the last chord faded, he looked at Daniel. "How'd I do?" Daniel walked over, eyes shining. "You didn't just play it. You lived it." Later, back in his room, Oliver added a new detail to the drawing on the wall. A bridge now connected the boats. Below it, in his neat block letters, "We're building it together." Daniel stood in the doorway, silent, then whispered, "You're not lost anymore." Oliver turned and smiled. "Neither are you, Dad." The morning after their demo recording, Daniel woke to a dozen emails flagged urgent. His PR manager had called twice. The subject lines hit like a brick. CEO exploiting foster child? Redemption or PR stunt? He rubbed his eyes, heart pounding. The video of him and Oliver performing Bridge Between had gone viral. 2 million views overnight. But alongside praise came questions, harsh speculation, and pointed fingers. He walked into the kitchen where Oliver sat, cereal half-eaten, eyes on his phone. Daniel's breath caught. Oliver looked up, pale. "They're saying I'm just a story for your company. That I'm your image fixer." Daniel crossed the room, slowly. "You're not. None of this is for anyone but us." Oliver's voice cracked. Then why are there reporters outside the school? Daniel's fists clenched. I'll handle it. That afternoon, at his office, Daniel stared out the window. Boston's skyline blurred behind layers of emotion. He picked up the phone, canceled every meeting, and sent one email to his board. I'm taking leave. My son comes first. Back at the loft, he walked in with 2 backpacks. Oliver, he called. How do you feel about a road trip? Oliver blinked. Like, now? Now, Daniel said, handing him a sketchbook and a new guitar tuner. No cameras, just you, me, and music. They drove north out of the city, past forests, open skies, and winding roads. Oliver sketched every gas station they stopped at. At a diner in Maine, someone asked if Daniel was the guy from the video. He just smiled and paid the bill. At night, they stayed in a quiet cabin near a lake. There was no signal, no noise, just trees, stars, and the sound of fingers strumming strings inside a warm wooden room. Oliver spoke while tuning. I get why people think things. It's just, they don't know what it's like. Daniel sat beside him. What is it like? Oliver shrugged. When you grow up never being picked, you start thinking maybe you weren't meant to be wanted. Daniel's voice broke. I didn't know you were out there, I swear. If I had... Oliver cut him off. I believe you. But it still happened. Daniel nodded. Slow. I'll spend the rest of my life undoing it. That night, they sat by the fire. Oliver drew on the back of a napkin. A lake, a cabin, and 2 figures on a bench. He handed it to Daniel. You can keep this, he said softly. It's not much, but it's ours. Daniel folded the napkin like it was a treasure. It's everything. But when they returned home 3 days later, reality waited. A popular industry blog released an article accusing Daniel of timing the custody process with a product launch. The headline, Fatherhood or Fame? Daniel paced the living room, fuming. Oliver watched, quieter than usual. Then he stood and walked to the wall where his drawing of the bridge between had hung. He added a new piece, a sun rising over the bridge, faint yellow crayon over gray pencil. Daniel watched him. What's that for? Oliver glanced back. A reminder that light still comes, even when they doubt it. Daniel didn't speak. He simply pulled Oliver close. That evening, Daniel sent a video statement to the press. He sat with Oliver beside him, hands clasped. I'm not perfect, Daniel began, but I know what I lost and what I found. My son isn't a headline. He's a miracle I nearly missed, and I'll protect him, always. He ended it simply. Family isn't a campaign, it's a commitment. The video went viral again, but this time the tone shifted. A top music journalist tweeted, Maybe redemption isn't always fake. Sometimes it sounds like a father listening. In Oliver's room, a new line appeared beneath his drawing. We are not what they say. We are what we play. The music festival stage glowed under the warm light of late afternoon, a breeze stirring the banners behind Daniel as he stepped forward. The crowd buzzed. Thousands gathered in the park, not just for the music, but for the man now gripping the mic with both hands. Daniel glanced behind him at Oliver, seated with his guitar, legs swinging nervously. His hoodie was a bit too big, sleeves rolled to his elbows, but his eyes sparkled beneath the brim of a baseball cap. Daniel turned back to the crowd. I wasn't planning to speak today, but then again, I wasn't planning on finding my son in a foster care home either. A ripple of silence spread. He cleared his throat. A few months ago, I thought I had everything. Success, status, a company people knew. What I didn't have was him. He gestured gently to Oliver. He's the reason I'm standing here now, not as a CEO, as a father. People leaned in. There are more than 400,000 kids in foster care in the U.S. today. That's not just a number, that's 400,000 stories, songs waiting to be heard, dreams waiting to be seen. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded napkin sketch Oliver had drawn, the one with the lake, the cabin, and the bridge. This, Daniel said, holding it up, reminds me what really matters. Connection. family. The bridges we build when we stop thinking about ourselves and start listening. Then he stepped aside. "Oliver," he said, voice soft. "Ready?" Oliver walked up, gripping his guitar like armor and heart all in one. He nodded at the sound tech, adjusted the mic, and looked out over the crowd. His hands shook, just a little. "My name's Oliver," he said. "And this is a song my dad and I wrote. It's called Second Chance." He played the opening chord, gentle, familiar. The crowd hushed. His voice rose, clear and raw. "You didn't know I was waiting, but I kept playing in the dark. I drew bridges on napkins, hoping someone would find the spark." Tears welled in the eyes of strangers. Some swayed. Some held hands. Daniel stood to the side, frozen in awe, eyes locked on his son. "Now I'm here, and so are you. We don't need to fix the past. We just play each note honest and build something that'll last." The final note hung in the air like a prayer. Silence. Then thunderous applause. Oliver blinked, then smiled. Wide, real, relieved. Backstage, Daniel met him with open arms. "You did it." Oliver grinned. "We did." Later that night, Daniel posted a clip of the performance not from the official cameras but from his phone. Shaky, close up, full of feeling. He captioned it, "To every foster kid out there, we hear you, we see you, and we'll fight for your song to be heard." The post exploded. Messages poured in. Teachers, foster parents, former foster youth, musicians. Even celebrities shared the video, some writing they'd been in care once too. But one message stood out. From a girl in Iowa. "I thought no one cared, but now I believe someone might. I wrote a song today. Thank you, Oliver." Oliver read it twice, then handed Daniel the phone. "That's the real encore," he said softly. Daniel ruffled his hair. "You're changing more than you know." They sat together on the couch, quiet, content. On the coffee table lay the napkin sketch, now framed in glass, signed by both their names. A symbol of all they'd rebuilt, a reminder of where they'd started. And above them, pinned to the wall, hung a banner Daniel had made earlier that week. "Every child deserves a chorus. Every story deserves to be sung." The lights in the living room dimmed as Oliver stood near the mic stand, guitar slung across his chest. Daniel sat on the couch, his hand resting on the framed napkin sketch beside him. Now their family symbol. They weren't at a concert, not tonight. This was something more intimate. "Okay," Oliver said, his voice a little shaky. "This is for my dad." He strummed the first chord gently, eyes locked with Daniel's. Then he sang. "You came too late to catch the fall, but you'd have stayed to help me rise. I didn't know what love looked like till I saw it in your eyes." Daniel felt his throat tighten. The words weren't just lyrics, they were a bridge. Not to the past, but to everything ahead. When the final note faded, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Oliver whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for finding me." Daniel stood and walked over, wrapping him in a tight hug. "Thank you for letting me try." A few days later, they sat in a downtown Boston recording studio, surrounded by engineers and producers. Daniel had rented the space to help Oliver record his first EP, but what caught everyone's attention wasn't the boy's voice. It was the heart in every note. Oliver's first track? The same one he sang at the festival. But now they added a duet. Father and son, harmonizing on a chorus about second chances. The music video featured shots of Oliver's old sketchbook, now filled with songs. In the final scene, he places that framed napkin drawing, his dream cabin and bridge, on a wooden shelf, right beside Daniel's childhood guitar. That video soared. Millions watched. Schools reached out. Foster care agencies emailed, asking to use the song at events. Some offered to start music therapy programs inspired by Oliver's journey. But the biggest surprise came in the mail. A letter from a woman in Arkansas. My son used to hum your song before bedtime. He's 9 and just found a foster family. He wants to play guitar like Oliver. Oliver smiled, reading it. Can I send him my old strings? Daniel nodded. We'll send a full guitar. They launched a non-profit that week, Bridge Notes, a foundation offering instruments, lessons, and recording tools to children in foster care. Every new guitar shipped out included a copy of Oliver's EP and a note that read, Your voice matters. Play loud. Love louder. On the 1-year anniversary of their reunion, Daniel surprised Oliver with a trip, not to a theme park, but to a quiet, lakeside town in Vermont. As they walked up a gravel path, Oliver gasped. There, just like his napkin sketch, stood a wooden cabin, a real bridge, a lake. You built it? Oliver whispered. I had some help, Daniel said, arm around his shoulder. But yeah, I wanted you to know, dreams can live outside of paper. Inside, the walls were lined with music memorabilia, Oliver's first school recital photo, Daniel's first award, the napkin sketch enlarged above the fireplace. Oliver ran his fingers over a plaque near the door. The Walsh home. For every note that was ever missed. As the sun dipped low over the lake, they sat on the porch, Oliver strumming quietly. You think I'll always need you this much? Oliver asked. Daniel looked at him, eyes full. I hope you won't, but I'll always be here just in case. Oliver leaned his head on his father's shoulder. You're not just my dad, he murmured. You're my harmony. And in that moment, no spotlight, no applause, just two hearts finding rhythm in each other, their story truly began.